Hello everyone. In this lecture, we're just going to, this section of the lecture, I'm going to walk you through setting up a basic lesson plan. So let's remember our key definitions, and I'll put them on the screen right here. We have objectives, procedures, if I can spell, procedures, materials, and assessment. So we're learning the basic way to make a 4-column lesson plan, and then we can make it more complicated and more efficient by revolving it into a task stream. But let's take our baby step first, and let's look at what a lesson plan is. Remember, a lesson plan is 1 day of objectives and how you're going to meet those objectives. Remember, we have objectives, which is a basic objective of what we're going to teach. And then we have remediation and enrichment objectives that will help people either do a better job on their objective or to help people who are struggling with objectives. If you missed Saturday's class, no worries. At the end of this lecture, I'm going to add a section on basic objective writing. So don't worry about that. So let's look at, so you can fast forward and go backwards and forwards however you want to. So let's look at basic objectives and basic objective writing and how to do lesson plans. So our lesson plan that we're going to create in Microsoft Word is a lesson plan for 1 day. Remember that when we say 1 day, we mean 1 50-minute class. So I will delete this. Goodbye. And there's several ways, just looking at Microsoft Word, that you can do a basic lesson plan. I'll go ahead and put it into a 12 font, which will look nice, and you can pick your style. I've always, Times New Romans is okay. You can do Arial Black. You can do whatever you want to. I like Arial Black, so we'll go with that. Now, what many people do, just making a basic lesson plan, is they'll center and they'll say lesson plan day 1. And then they'll go ahead, and you can, however you want to do it, you can do subject, all right, so I'm doing a day 1 of a lesson plan, and the unit is World War II. So the 10-day unit is World War II, and just the 1 lesson plan is from day 1. So that's how many people will start their lesson plan out. And then what you'll need to do is you need to set up your tables and your columns however you wish to do. And there's really no uniformity to this. There's no guideline, no rules. But let me walk you through how to create a table. And what I would do is I'd go insert, and let me make sure I can find it, because tables are sometimes hard to find. And there's your table tab, and it's going to say, what do you want your table to look like? And I'm going to do 4 because I'm going to have 4 major columns. And I'll go ahead and do that. Now you notice that this is not giving me much leeway. So with that said, I need to go to page layout, and I'm going to need to change my orientation to landscape. And that's going to give me a little bit bigger one, and then I can spread this out like that. So, and then I'm going to go ahead and highlight and center. Something like that. And then I can tab that out, and I can make it bigger, and then I can, and I'm just going to go ahead and save it on my desktop, just in case anything happens. I don't want to lose that. So that's how I would start a basic lesson plan, and a basic, just a 1-day lesson plan. It's real simple, real easy. So that's how I would do that. Whenever I'm writing my lesson plan, my objective, I would do objective number 1, period. And then how we know how to write them. The student will, and then evaluate. And then you can play around with this and go, okay, you know, that's how I want to do that. So like that. So I've written my lesson plan, and I may want to drop that font down if I want to. And you can play around this however you want to, and you can do it. You can do whatever you want to with this, and that's up to you. And I may want to slide my procedure. That's up to you. You can play around with this however you want to. So as I go through my procedures, so I've got the student will evaluate the causes of the war with the 100% accuracy. This is just like we've taught everyone how to write a lesson plan, and simple, and how to do that really easy. The next thing we have is the procedures. So procedures, what we want to do is we want to go 1, lecture concerning the causes of the war. And then something that many people don't do is go ahead and put the time that it's going to take for that lecture. Then I see handouts, and then and then for materials, for 1, we'll put 2 handout. What's that? Assessment, graded handout. Teacher rubric. So that's how I would do a lesson plan. The student will evaluate the cause of the war with 100% accuracy. I'm guessing on the levels, Bloom's evaluation, DLK 3. Procedures, lecture concerning the cause of the war. 2, provide handout. 3, review directions. Materials, PowerPoint handout, assessment, graded handout, and teacher rubric. So that's how you do a basic lesson plan, and that's how you would start it out. Now, what we would also need to do is this needs to be in your materials. So as you're doing a lesson plan, you need to create materials. So you would say, see, Appendix 1, see, Appendix 2, three. And then as you're scrolling down here, as you can tell, I'm not the greatest speller, but oh well. That's why we have spell check, and that's why the little red line pops up. I would go ahead and start my page, which is called Appendix. And I would do Appendix 1. And I know that Appendix 1 will be the PowerPoint. And you want to print off that PowerPoint, or you want to save that PowerPoint and you want to attach this to this. That's up to you. Appendix 2 would be an actual handout that you create for the homework, so you do Appendix 2. And Appendix 3 would be the actual rubric that you're going to use to grade that, and you can create those on your own as well. So what the goal is the certified substitute teacher would walk in and go, okay, 20 minutes on this, 5 minutes on this, boom, boom, see appendix. Appendix is down here. See this now. How would you put a PowerPoint in here? You could put Appendix 1, open, file, attachments. Let's see. So, simple as that, easy as that. And then Appendix 2 would be, you'd actually have that attachment on there as well. Now, what this leaves us is 2 things that we have not done yet, and we'll see that, and that's going to segue into the next section, which is state, framework, and Common Core. So then what we need to do now is, so there should be no questions about this. It shouldn't be. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. You saw how to do this. And then the next thing, of course, you want to hit enter. Now you'll notice it's done. Number 2 would be remediation. Now, if you don't like these numbers, there is a way you can get this, continue numbering. You can also change the number, restart at 1, however you want to do that. I would probably restart that one at 1. You do procedures for that. Just list numberings, continue number set, or you can just delete those. That. And you can set up your own numbering. You could do 1 like that. And that's how you would set up this objective for this whole lesson plan. So your lesson plan in one day would have the basic objective and then the remediation and enrichment. And then you have all these in appendixes. It's easy. Now the one thing we haven't discussed yet, and we're going to discuss that in the next section, is state framework. So let's look at this one thing right here that I'm going to do. Mississippi framework dash something. And Common Core dash something. So let me explain to you what this means when we put this. So we now know what blooms and DOK means from our previous lecture. If you missed the previous lecture, that will be on the back end of this lecture. So you might want to watch that first. And it's going to be titled Writing Objectives. And now let's do a section on what Mississippi Framework and what the CC means. Okay, this is the Mississippi Department of Education website. So what we are looking for when we look at this website is the Mississippi Curriculum Standards. Now, you may ask, why are we doing this? Because if we're going to write objectives, we have to align them with the Mississippi Curriculum Standards. Now, whenever you become a teacher and you're certified, you will actually be expected to know this. There will be a curriculum expert who will, in all likelihood, walk up to your classroom during your first year of teaching or your first week of teaching and hand you the curriculum standards that you need to align your objectives with. With that said, I'm going to show you where they're getting them so that you can write your objectives pretty easily. This is the Mississippi Department of Education website. I got here by going to Google and typing in Mississippi Department of Education. It's real easy. And this is their basic website. This website can be confusing. It has a lot of dead links to it, and it's not very well built. With that said, I will teach you how to get to the curriculum standards. To do that, I usually just type in curriculum framework. This will get you to curriculum and instruction, and there's your website. This is the website you would need to go to find your curriculum standards. You'll look to the left, and here's where you find your curriculum area. We have social studies, science, mathematics, all the major areas, English as well. So let's go ahead and click on social studies. We click on social studies, and this is very confusing, but I'll walk you through it. What we have here is the 2011 Mississippi Social Studies Framework. The first thing you would think, of course, is, wait a minute, it's not 2011, it is whatever year it is. Well, the 2011 was when it was changed. So the 2011 Mississippi Social Studies Framework is the most common and is the most up-to-date. So I would think they would just call it the Mississippi Social Studies Framework, but they put the year, which is very confusing to many people. This is an implementation memo. You do not have to look at that. If you don't want to, you can if you want to. The PowerPoint, and on the bottom, the Civil Rights Education Mississippi PowerPoint, that's just a PowerPoint that they put on there, and you can look at it if you wish. But this is what you're going to want to look at, and we want to go ahead and download that. Now, as you're downloading it, you'll see it pops up. and it has the most fantastic clip art I've ever seen in the history of the world. This is pretty basic. It looks like they've just pulled some clip art out of Microsoft Word, and let's put a judge here and let's put a tree here. So let me walk you through what you're seeing when you look at the Mississippi Social Studies Framework. And you can do this with any and all other areas. As we scroll down, you'll see the 2011 Mississippi Social Studies Framework, and it was approved in 2010. So I don't understand that either, that it's approved in 2010. So let's keep going. As you scroll down, you see acknowledgments, you see a table of contents. You can kind of skip over all of this, and this page right here is just a description of what you're seeing when you read it. So you really can kind of skip this, and this is the really one true thing that it has that is really good. Starting on page 14 of all the frameworks, starting on whatever page on all the frameworks, they start in chronological order. So you can begin, you go, okay, kindergarten social studies. Well, after this, first grade and second grade. And then as you scroll down, you get to the higher grades. And we get to 11th grade. And we get to areas such as that. So this is, let's get through world geography. Let's get through world history, which is 10th grade. And let's get to the 11th grade. And here's my U.S. history from post-Reconstruction to present. So all of the lesson plans and all of the unit plans that you'll be creating will need to be aligned with the Mississippi State Framework, MSF. The good news is it's very easy to align them, and it's also very easy to find them because they're all in chronological order on the Curriculum and Instruction website of whenever you open them up. So that's how you find this. Very easy and very simple to do. So now let's get to the meat of this. What am I looking at? Whenever you get to the grade level that you're teaching, for example, 11th grade, I see a narrative here discussing that, and you can read that if you want to. But here's what you're really looking for. And these are the content standards or the objectives for each area. So whenever I'm looking at U.S. history, I need to make sure that I am teaching or that I have taught throughout the school year or sometime in the school year the number 1, number 2, and so on. Global affairs. 4. Now you might think, well, what's this ABC under here mean? The ABCD under number 1 are some suggested objectives to meet that competency. So, for example, explain and analyze the expansion of federal powers. So if we look back to that original lesson plan that we did, the one that we've been working on, and we go, okay, what does that mean? What is that lesson plan about? Well, that lesson plan was about the causes of World War II. So let's see if we can find a competency and an objective which aligns with that. So as we scroll through here and we look at global affairs, analyze the effects of imperialism on the foreign policy? No. Compare and contrast the arguments? No. Draw conclusions about causes and effects of American involvement in the world wars. Well, there's where I'm going to align that with. 3C. So 3C is a very simple and a very straightforward. So when I pull up so it's global affairs 3C. So MSF 3C. So open up my lesson plan and put MSF 3-C. Now I do not need to put that this is U.S. history because I've got that right here. So everyone knows that we're in the U.S. history lesson plans and it's aligned with MSF 3C. Can it align with more than one? Yes, it can, and you can put more than one in there. So that is how we as teachers find our lesson plans and how they're aligned with individual state standards. As you go back, you'll see other ones. You can see science, and then you can see English. Now, English and mathematics is a complete different discussion. English and mathematics are Common Core. And we're going to have an in-depth lecture on Common Core and what that is, but not at this time. There's no need to do that at this time because it's just going to get us all confused. But if you're an English teacher in this class or you're a math teacher, then you're going to need to line it with Common Core. So you see 2014 Mississippi Common Core stands for English Language Arts. You'd click that one. And this is their document for Common Core. Also, a good part about this document is it is lined chronological, just like the previous one. So if you're teaching English in first grade or 10th grade, it is once again in order, and that's the one good thing that they keep doing with this. So if I look at English and I'm in 7th grade, I can say, okay, I need to align this objective with my English. Now, English, we could say cite several pieces. So if I'm doing an English objective, I would do Common Core RL 7.1 or 0.71. So that's up to you. So I don't want to go really in depth into Common Core right now because it's a lecture upon itself. And it's good. Implementation is kind of the gray area. But just be advised that if you are mathematics or if you are English, then you're going to be directed to these Common Core. If you're drama, advanced planning, you can find all these in here. You're just going to have to dig deep. Like PE, physical education, once again, we have a document here. And it looks the same as all the other ones. As you scroll down, you see grade 2, and then you have all of these objectives. You just need to make sure you align all of these with this. So if I'm doing an objective for PE, then I could, and as for grade 6, then I would say, okay, it's objective number 2. So that's how we align everything with the Mississippi framework. That is what Mississippi framework means. The only word of caution I would say is the website is a little bit confusing. And whenever you, like, for example, if you click on mathematics, you would expect the mathematics framework to be available. But as we scroll down, we go, okay, whoa, oh man, what is this all about? We've got a strategic plan. I've got college readiness standards. So which one am I looking for? Well, you're going to have to wade through here and find it. But for math, obviously, I would say 2014 Mississippi College and Career Readiness Standards. I'd click on that one and then see where it's going to take me. And that looks just like the document I'm going to need. I've got Algebra 1 here, and I've got that. That's the only negative I have about this website is you can get lost. It looks like they've just poured a lot of links in here. But if I'm just beat a dead horse, if I'm science, okay, I've got 2010 Mississippi Science Framework. And the rest of these looks like they've just added stuff. Email science specialist. Let's just do that right there. So if I click on this one and I open it up, it looks, okay, now we're into what is this about? Well, it's not this. 2010 Science Framework, it's going to be that one. So I'm going to click on that one, and there, it looks very familiar as the other ones. So when you get to the Mississippi Department of Education website, type in curriculum framework, standards framework, curriculum instruction, and you'll get there. But be wary that the website, take your time on clicking. And if you get lost, you can send me an email and I can walk you through how to do that. But now you know why whenever we write our objectives, what the MSF stands for. Or if you're doing English or math, you don't do it for social studies and other subjects, but you do it for English or math, you would do Common Core, and then you could do whatever abbreviation that they have in there. But now you see where we're getting that from. And whenever your principal looks at your lesson plans, that they're seeing that you are teaching the state standards and that you're aligning the state standards with your objectives. So if a student fails that objective, they're not hitting that state objective. That's what you want. So what we're going to do now is we're going to bounce into another lecture, which is going to look at procedures and how to do that. Well, we've already looked at procedures, so I've checked that off. We've looked at DOK, looked at Bloom's, we looked at state framework, and I'm going to do a lecture real quick, just briefly on what Common Core is. So that's something I'm going to add as well. But I'm just going to give you an overview of it because you keep hearing it. So I'm going to do just a real quick lecture on what is Common Core. So that's going to happen right now. This will just be a quick audio lecture talking to you about Common Core, and I want to give everybody an overview of what it was like. It all starts around 1980s with Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan was a president of the time, and he during his presidency, Reagan was a big advocate of states were responsible for their own education system. So he said that the federal government doesn't need to deal with states and their education. Well, at this time, an article came out called A Nation at Risk. And in that report, there was a discussion that said that the United States as a whole was behind the other nations when we compared our students with international students. So Ronald Reagan was kind of forced to do something about that. So he does a press conference and he says that we're going to really start stressing math and science again, and then kind of walks away. But what the big deal is, the National Governors Association, they meet all the time, mainly once a year or twice a year. And they meet and they discuss how they're going to have agendas for education and what they're going to do with that. So the governors at the time, Texas, Florida, Arkansas, all the different governors, they're meeting and they're saying, we've got this Nation at Risk article that's hurting our business. That's hurting people coming here and opening up jobs. So we have some concerns about that. So the importance of this is the National Governors Association is tomorrow's leaders. So governors of Texas, Bush, governor of Arkansas, Clinton, and all the other major leaders, they start talking about, well, we need to have an education agenda. Well, by the time the 1990s happen, we have Bill Clinton's Goals 2000. And Goals 2000 said that by 2000 we would have students, proficient at a national level on reading and mathematics and all those areas. So we start seeing from Clinton on, and it's not Clinton's fault, it's just there's been this push for every president needs to have a national curriculum agenda. And this counters the Reagan idea of every state's responsible for their own education. So now every time we have a president, we say, well, what's your educational goals? What are your goals on education? And nobody really ever comes back and says, that's up to the states. Everyone kind of has to have their own agenda. Now with that, we start seeing the 2002 piece of legislation that comes in called No Child Left Behind. In that presentation by George W. Bush, it said that from 2002 to 2014, every school district in 2014 will have 100% pass rate on all key areas. It also advocated that every state had to have a ranking system, a rating system, had to have for failing schools. Also, school districts had to have assessments that they created that would help with the rating systems, and that's how all these items worked. Well, we'll look at No Child Left Behind later, but now we start getting into what is this idea of a national curriculum standards. In the early 1990s, also under Clinton, the Senate tried to pass a resolution for national social studies standards. Well, that failed by a 99-1 vote. So the idea of national curriculum standards did not have a good appeal to many people. So what then ended up happening was it kind of gets tabled and just becomes this era that we're just going to discuss at a later time. Well, around 2006, it reemerged in this idea of having common cores, common core standards that would be uniform and would get everyone ready for a successful life as well as a successful college career. And that's what Common Core becomes. So we start seeing a lot of the private sector stressing the need for Common Core national standards. And several standards were developed, and one was in English and one was in mathematics. And these standards look something like this. These are the National Common Core standards for English, and you can Google Common Core English and you'll see them. They're all over the place. But for example, in kindergarten under reading, students will be able to know and apply grade level phonics. And now, Common Core is actually really good. Common Core gives a national and a natural progression from kindergarten to 12th grade, which will lead you to college. Unlike our Mississippi State framework, which has 1, 2, 3A and all that stuff, those things really do not seem connected to the next standards. The U.S. history standards do not seem connected to the world history standards. But with Common Core, all the standards on each grade level lead up into a progression, which will lead you to college. So the Common Core standards was a good idea. The implementation's kind of in a scary way. And let's talk about how that happened. What happened with the Common Core standards was, well, they were created, and then someone said, well, how are we going to get, the federal government's going to have to get people to want to do this. So our president at the time, President Obama, argues for this idea of race to the top, not race for the top, it's race to the top. And this grant, this was a grant open to anybody in the United States, any state, and they could receive $450 million or $300 million, depending on your proposal. And so what they said is, if you're doing all these key elements, such as a national curriculum, a merit pay rating system for teachers, and all these different elements, then you could apply for these grants. Well, of the 50 states, some states applied for it and some states did not. Mississippi did not apply for it. However, the states that did get it after several rounds of selection process received a large amount of money. Well, the problem with that is now any state that wants to do a federal grant is going to need to align with Race to the Top grants. So the state of Mississippi and the state of all the other states were like, okay, we didn't get the funding then, but now we see the writing on the wall. If we want to be considered for future federal grants, then we need to have a national Common Core curriculum. We need to have merit pay rating systems. We need to have all these things. So that's how the federal government is able to mandate what each state can do in education. They can offer them the power of the purse, which is money. If you want to do No Child Left Behind, we'll give you X amount of money. If you want to do Race to the Top, you need to have Common Core. So that is why Mississippi has adopted Common Core, is because we're wanting the future for the Race to the Top grant part 2, if it's offered, along with all the other federal grants that come out as well. So that's just kind of a basic history of Common Core without going all the way through it, and we can look at that at a later time. We also just kind of skimmed No Child Left Behind. There's another lecture that's going to go all the way through that. But I just want to give you an idea of what Common Core is. If you'll remember, whenever you put in your materials column, you could put PowerPoint. But I also like to tell everybody about a website called Prezi. And Prezi is a little bit better than PowerPoint. Well, it's a lot better than PowerPoint because it has several features. One thing is it's free. So keep that in mind whenever you look at Prezi. When you log into Prezi, it may ask you about paying something, but just keep in mind that there's a free section to Prezi, and you don't have to pay for anything if you do that. Now, if you do want to pay for Prezi, which is up to you, you can do what's called Prezi Pro, and this is what it does. Well, when you have free, your presentations will be publicly visible. It's $0 a month, and any time you make a Prezi, it's open to everybody. When you go with, you can do $10 a month, $20 a month, and all that. With Pro, you can make presentations private. You can edit them offline and all that. But that's really up to you. I do the free one. I don't do the public or the Pro. So that's up to you, but I always do the free one. So this is what you get with Prezi, and I kind of encourage everybody to just play around with it because it's quite fun. So let's just dive into it, and you can play around with it, and you don't have to worry about doing PowerPoints. Now, the reason we get away from PowerPoints is because PowerPoints are kind of boring. PowerPoints have been done since the late 90s. Everyone's used PowerPoints. Everybody's seen the slide transitions and how they work. and there's really nothing new to it. So let's just look at Prezi as an example. Now, what you do when you go to Prezi is you just go ahead and start a presentation. And when you go into Prezi, it looks like this. You'll see the little blue circle, and it's loading. And what Prezi is it's a huge whiteboard. That's all it is. And it's going to say, what do you want to do? How do you want this to look? So this is where you might get kind of like, wow, I'm a little confused. Well, you can just do right here, start blank Prezi. You can click that. And it's going to actually start you a blank Prezi. Now, the thing about Prezi is giving you all these little hints. You don't have to worry about those. You can X these out. They're trying to make Prezi user-friendly, encourage people to use it. It's so nice, though. What Prezi is, I'm going to use my mouse wheel on this one, is you can zoom out. It's a huge whiteboard. That's all it is. Prezi is a huge whiteboard. And whatever you put on Prezi, like I can put hello class, and I can go over here, my name is Ratliff. So I've put this all over this whiteboard, and I go, okay, well, what am I going to do with this? Well, let's see. Well, that doesn't look fun, does it? So what we need to do is do a path. So I go edit path. 1, 2, 3. Over here's my path that I've got. So I want to delete that one. I want to delete that circle too. All right. So now we go to my present button. Hello class. My name is Ratliff. Simple as that. So what I've done is I've set my path on how I want to do that. And so that's all Prezi is. Prezi is a huge whiteboard, and you set the path. So when you look at Prezi, and that's something I want everybody to just play around with. Don't worry about doing PowerPoints. Just do that. So I'll give you an example. Let's go to, let's see. I'm going to go to Google. And I'm going to go to images, and let me type in world map. All right, so I found the world map. I'm going to copy it, copy image, and I go back to my Prezi, and I need to insert this map into this. So I go here to insert image. Well, it goes, well, what do you want to insert? Well, I need to go ahead and save that. Well, I can just do copy link address. That'll work. Well, that didn't work. My bad. So let me go ahead and save that image on my desktop. Save. And then I'm going to, there's a large strike of lightning there. So let me go ahead and select the file. And there's my world map, and open that. So I know that didn't seem easy, but what I did was I'm going to go back to this. I found a world map image. I right-clicked, and I saved the image on my desktop, and then I just went ahead and inserted that from my computer. Real easy to do, real simple to do. But here's what the reason I discussed this is let me show you what you can do with Prezi just because this is a whiteboard. So remember, whenever I've got my path over here on the left. So if I go to my present button, it's going to go path 1, path 2, and path 3. All right, so that's how that's going to go. So I want to start the lecture by going into this world map. So I can do edit path, and I can add the map on path 4. Easy as that. So whenever I go into present, and we're bouncing from here to here, you'll see that works. But what you can also do with Prezi is you can zoom into certain sections. So I can do edit, and you can look at it however you want to insert stuff, or you can just insert frames here, and you'll notice that is I can do what's called a circle frame. and there's Australia. Simple as that. So what that means is, and I'm going to edit the path, and it's going to go to 5. So whenever I go into the present, this is step 4, this is 3, 4, and then whenever I click this, watch what happens. It's going to zoom in there. So I can actually take my path here. I can even do that. So the way that's going to look is, I'm going to be teaching my class. I go Ratliff. My name is Ratliff. I go to the map. I then zoom in to Australia, and then I can zoom out. And that's the thing about Prezi is, with PowerPoint, each item is a slide. So you go from one slide to the next slide to the next slide. Well, with Prezi, everything is on a whiteboard. So you can put whatever you want to on this whiteboard. And you saw that you can insert images, you can do YouTube videos, which work very well. So if you want to go to YouTube, you can, and the YouTube video integration makes Prezi really worthwhile, because when you try to embed a YouTube video into a PowerPoint, it takes a lot of work. But when you want to embed a YouTube video, it's so easy. You just put the address and it works very well. So it's so much better. Now, let me go to some of my images. I'm going to exit this. And that's just a kind of a wasted Prezi. So let me go to my Prezis. And I'm going to go ahead and delete that one because it was just kind of a wasted one. And then I'm going to show you a Prezi that I've done in other classes, and this one right here. So this Prezi is a Prezi that I've done on legal issues in education. And if you notice, if I go to the present button, it's going to go from icon to icon. It's going to go from here to this one, to this one, to this one, to this one. And it just keeps going. And also, you notice I have YouTube videos of people making mistakes as teachers. But if you scroll out, you'll see what the whiteboard looks like. I've got YouTube videos. So you kind of just put whatever you want to on Prezi, and then you just connect everything with the links. Simple as that. So I really want you to play around with Prezi. So whenever you open up your lesson plan, instead of putting PowerPoint here, you could actually put Prezi. Now, Prezi is not mandatory as of yet. There may be a homework assignment. There might be. But Prezi is kind of cool just to play around with and just enjoy that. So that's up to you. Try Prezi. It's found at Prezi.com. It's free. Another benefit is what's called the cloud. Prezi is stored on its own servers. So whenever you go to a conference or whenever you're going to go to class, as long as you have internet access, you can open up that Prezi. That's also a selling point of Prezi, is that you can open it up wherever you want to. You don't have to bring your laptop everywhere. So you may want to play around with Prezi, but that's what Prezi is. And I definitely wanted to show you that. Okay, so if you already came to class, you don't need this part, but this is just a refresher on how to write a basic objective. So this is, if anyone missed the Saturday class, this is what you need to make sure you hit this lecture. When we write an objective, we have several parts. One part is the audience, and that is going to be the student will or the learner will. The next is the verb, and we get the verb from Bloom's or depth of knowledge, DOK. The next is the content. And then finally, the level of mastery. And that's self-explanatory. So let me give you an example of this. But what we're going to need is we're going to need the verbs. So let's go ahead and find the verbs by going to Google and typing in Bloom's taxonomy and pulling up this chart right here. And this will show you the chart everyone uses for Bloom's. And it goes just like this. It goes knowledge, comprehensive, application, analysis. So the harder these are, then that's going to be the higher level learning that will occur. So let's just go ahead and write an objective. So the student will, and let's pick one of the early Blooms, the easy one. Let's go with recall. The student will recall. And so that's my verb. So my verb. Now let's get into the content. So my content is this. All right, so I've got the student will, that's my audience, recall, which is my verb, the cause of the Civil War with 100% accuracy. Now we can use different variations of verbs. So verbs can be used from the Blooms or the DOK. Now DOK is, go back. Depth of knowledge. Then you'll see this chart that looks like this. Simple as that. So when we go into that, it has level 1, level 2, level 3, or level 4. So at the end of this, I would go Bloom's knowledge, because that's the knowledge level, DOK 1. So I have identified that my verb is Bloom's knowledge. So my verbs can be, they come from Bloom's and DOK. My content or my subject is I decide what I want the students to learn, and my level of mastery is at what level will the student need to perform to master the objective. So that's what the components of an objective look like. It is the student will, verb, and content. So the next keyword we need to know is enrichment objective. An enrichment objective is when a student performs very well on one objective and needs to have an opportunity to do extra work or something that's going to help them out. So for example, with this objective, I would put the student will analyze the attack on Fort Sumter in military terminology with a minimum of 3 supporting facts. So I've got the student will analyze. So if I go to Bloom's, I may see that that's going to be Bloom's analysis, and that'll be DOK 3. So the student will analyze, that's my verb, the attack on Fort Sumter in military terminology, so that's my content. With a minimum of 3 supporting facts. That's my level of mastery. Now you're thinking, well, where's he getting these levels of mastery? you need to think about how the product that's going to be produced from this objective. In this one, this is probably going to be a basic homework assignment. In this one, this is probably going to be an essay. So with an essay, I'm going to need to be able to grade this, and to grade it, 3 supporting facts is good for that essay. I'll be happy with that. Now, the last terminology we have is the remediation objective. This is when a student does not do well on the original objective. So you want to have an objective that's going to be a little bit easier than the original objective. So I may want to say the student will recall 1 cause of the Civil War with 100% accuracy. So that's a very, very easy. Bloom's knowledge and DOK level 1. So this is just an easier objective than this original objective. Now, I probably would not. You don't want to just make the original objective even easier, but you may want to. But also, you could say the student will recall will describe the Missouri Compromise with a minimum of 3 supporting facts. Now, that is a harder objective on the terminology than the recall, but the Missouri Compromise was on a previous unit, and that is also one of the causes of the Civil War, one of the biggest causes of the Civil War. So, to go back and make sure we know what we're talking about here, when you're writing an objective, you need to make sure you have these key components to it: the student will, the verb, the content, and the level of mastery. You will put those in your lesson plan here. And you also need to have a remediation and an enrichment per objective. So that's how I do. How many objectives do you need a day? That's up to you, but every objective you have has to have a remediation and enrichment objective. So that's what's taught us. That's just basic lesson plan writing, and that's what we expanded on. All right, now it's time for the homework discussion. And if you remember, if you look at our tentative schedule for 610, we have a homework assignment, which will be daily lesson plans. Now, if you missed Saturday's class, please do the objective assignment along with the daily lesson plan assignment. Now, I'm going to email everybody if you missed class, I'll email that objective assignment to you. But for everyone else now this is for the whole class, here's what I need you to do for this homework assignment. This homework assignment will be very straightforward. Now, it says daily lesson plans, but I'm going to change that to daily lesson plan. I would like for you to create 1 lesson plan. Create 1 lesson plan in Microsoft Word. That lesson plan needs to have the following: the course you're teaching, the grade level, 1 objective, 1 enrichment, 1 remediation. It also needs to have the procedures, the materials, and the assessments. And here is the critical thing. It also needs to have an appendix with all of the attachments that will be needed. That is your only assignment that'll be due on June 13th. Well, you will need to create a 1-day lesson plan, all the meat parts, all the heart to it, all the rubrics, everything you need for that 1 day. Very easy to do, very straightforward. Time-wise, the objective should take you probably, brainstorming, I would take 20 minutes. 20 minutes to brainstorm what kind of lesson plan you're going to create. Objectives should be written, I would say, in 5 minutes. That's 25 minutes right there. Procedures should be written, I would say, all in all, I'd have everything done in an hour. And then to get all the materials and everything, probably another hour. So this is probably going to look at you about a 2-hour project. It's very rewarding, and it's very easy and very straightforward. That'll be due on my courses, and that'll be real simple. So once again, let's redo this. A Microsoft Word document submission, Microsoft Word, with your lesson plan, 1 objective, 1 remediation, 1 enrichment, along with your procedures, your materials, and your assessments, and the appendix for everything you're going to use. So if you say I'm going to use lecture notes, you need to include lecture notes. If you're going to use a rubric, you need to include the rubric. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me.